Every city has its hidden hierarchy. Toronto has one too. And the one man standing at the very top of that hierarchy was about to be brought to his knees by someone sitting in the back seat of a taxi. The driver had no idea what he was carrying until she picked up the phone. The rain hammered against the windshield of Marcus Thompson's yellow cab as he navigated through downtown Toronto's evening traffic. Bay Street stretched ahead, gleaming with the reflections of corporate towers and high-end restaurants. Marcus had been driving this route for 15 years, and he thought he'd seen everything. In his rearview mirror, he caught glimpses of his passenger, a woman who looked like she'd stepped straight out of a travel brochure. Mid-30s, wearing a simple gray sweater and jeans, clutching a Toronto guidebook and a disposable camera. Her brown hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail and oversized glasses perched on her nose. Everything about her screamed tourist from Vancouver. Maybe small-town girl visits the big city. "First time in Toronto?" Marcus asked, trying to make conversation as they sat in traffic near the CN Tower. The woman glanced up from her guidebook. "Something like that," she replied with a soft voice that carried just a hint of an accent he couldn't place. Marcus nodded and turned his attention back to the road. He'd picked her up from Union Station 20 minutes ago, and she'd asked to be taken to the Fairmont Royal York Hotel. Nothing unusual about that. Tourists stayed there all the time. What struck him as odd was how she kept checking her watch, not with the casual curiosity of someone wondering about dinner reservations, but with the precision of someone operating on a very specific timeline. "Traffic's pretty bad tonight," Marcus commented, gesturing toward the sea of brake lights ahead. "Some big corporate event at the Four Seasons. All the VIP cars are clogging up the streets." The woman didn't respond. She was studying something in her guidebook with an intensity that seemed unusual for tourist material. Marcus glanced in the mirror again and noticed she wasn't reading about CN Tower visiting hours or Blue Jays statistics. The page she was focused on appeared to be a map, but not the kind of map tourists typically used. "You know," Marcus continued, "I've been driving in this city for 15 years. Seen all kinds of passengers. Politicians, celebrities, business moguls. Even drove Vincent Castellano once. You know, the guy who basically owns half the waterfront development projects. Real piece of work, that one. Thinks he runs this city." At the mention of Castellano's name, something shifted in the woman's posture. It was subtle. Her shoulders straightened slightly, her grip on the guidebook tightened, and for just a moment, her eyes sharpened with a focus that had nothing touristy about it. "Vincent Castellano," she repeated quietly as if testing how the name felt on her tongue. "Yeah, Vincent Castellano. Vincent the Builder, they call him in the papers. Though, between you and me," Marcus lowered his voice conspiratorially, "there are plenty of stories about how he really got all those construction contracts. Let's just say his connections go way beyond City Hall." The woman closed her guidebook and looked out the window at the towering glass structures of the financial district. "Tell me more about Mr. Castellano." There was something in the way she said "Mr." that made Marcus do a double take in his rearview mirror. The tourist facade was still there, but underneath it he caught a glimpse of something else. Something that made him suddenly feel like he was the one being studied. "Well," Marcus began, warming to the subject, "Castellano's got his fingers in everything. Real estate, construction, import businesses down at the harbor. They say he's got judges in his pocket, police commissioners on his payroll, and enough dirt on city council members to keep them voting his way for the next decade." The woman nodded thoughtfully. "And where might one find Mr. Castellano on a Tuesday evening like tonight?" The question was asked so casually, so innocently, that it took Marcus a moment to register how strange it was. Who asks a taxi driver where to find one of the city's most powerful men? Especially a tourist who, 5 minutes ago, was reading about the Casa Loma Castle? That's a pretty specific question," Marcus said slowly. Why would you want to know something like that? She smiled, a perfectly pleasant, tourist-like smile. Oh, just curious. I read about him in the newspaper. Fascinating how some people accumulate so much influence. They were passing the Royal Ontario Museum now, its crystal edition gleaming under the streetlights. The rain had softened to a drizzle, and the evening crowd was beginning to emerge from restaurants and office buildings. Marcus found himself paying more attention to his passenger than to the road. Most nights, Castellano holds court at the Shangri-La Hotel, Marcus found himself saying, though he wasn't sure why he was sharing this information. Top floor restaurant, private dining room. They say he conducts more city business over dinner than most councilmen do in their offices. The Shangri-La, the woman repeated, pulling out her phone. Top floor. And that's when everything changed. The phone she pulled out wasn't the kind tourists carry. It wasn't an iPhone with a cracked screen and a collection of vacation photos. It was a device Marcus had never seen before. Sleek, black, with what appeared to be military-grade encryption capabilities. The kind of phone that suggested its owner was definitely not here to see the CN Tower. She dialed a number with the swift precision of someone who'd made this call 1,000 times before. Marcus found himself slowing down, his attention split between the road and the conversation about to unfold in his back seat. The phone was answered on the first ring. Director, the woman said, her voice completely transformed. Gone was the soft, uncertain tone of a tourist. In its place was something cold, authoritative, and absolutely terrifying. This is Agent Sarah Mackenzie, asset located. Vincent Castellano, Shangri-La Hotel, private dining room, top floor. Marcus felt his hands tighten on the steering wheel. Agent? Asset? What the hell was happening in his taxi? Confirmed, she continued. 15 years of money laundering through construction contracts, connections to the Rossetti crime family in Montreal, and direct ties to 3 unsolved waterfront murders. The evidence package from informant David Chen has been authenticated. The woman, Agent Mackenzie apparently, was now speaking with the clinical precision of someone delivering a death sentence. Marcus realized he was witnessing something that was about to change the power structure of an entire city. Yes, Director. Full tactical support authorized. We move tonight. She paused, listening to something on the other end of the call. Marcus caught her eyes in the rearview mirror, and what he saw there made him understand that every assumption he'd made about this passenger had been catastrophically wrong. Understood. Tell the Toronto Police Commissioner that Vincent Castellano's protection detail is to stand down immediately. If there's any resistance, remind him that we have complete documentation of his involvement in the harbor contract conspiracy. Marcus nearly ran a red light. The Toronto Police Commissioner? Harbor contract conspiracy? He was beginning to realize that he wasn't just driving a passenger. He was driving someone who was about to dismantle one of the most powerful criminal enterprises in Canadian history. One more thing, Agent Mackenzie continued, her voice dropping to a whisper that somehow carried more menace than any shout. Call Vincent's personal number. Tell him that the woman from the taxi wishes to speak with him. She ended the call and immediately dialed another number. This time, Marcus could hear it ringing through the car's speaker system. After 3 rings, a gravelly voice answered. Who is this? How did you get this number? Mr. Vincent Castellano, Agent Mackenzie said, and Marcus felt the temperature in the cab drop 10 degrees. My name is Sarah Mackenzie, Canadian Security Intelligence Service. I believe you have something that belongs to me. There was a long silence on the other end of the line. When Castellano finally spoke, his voice had lost all its bluster. CSIS? What? What do you want? I want you to walk out of the Shangri-La Hotel, Mr. Castellano. Right now. No security detail, no lawyers, no phone calls. Just you, walking out the front door with your hands visible. You can't be serious, Castellano sputtered. Do you have any idea who I am? I own half the city. I have connections that go all the way to Ottawa. You can't just. David Chen, Agent Mackenzie interrupted. The silence that followed was deafening. David Chen, she repeated. Your accountant. The one who's been documenting every illegal transaction, every bribe, every murder you've ordered for the past 5 years. The one who contacted us 6 months ago. Marcus could hear Castellanos breathing, becoming labored through the phone. David Chen, who provided us with bank records showing $50 million in laundered money. David Chen, who gave us the audio recordings of your conversation with Montreal crime boss, Tony Rossetti. David Chen, who handed over the photographic evidence of your involvement in the deaths of Harbor Inspector Michael Rodriguez, Union leader Patricia Wong, and journalist James Morrison. With each revelation, Marcus felt like he was watching the controlled demolition of a skyscraper. Castellanos' empire wasn't just cracking, it was being surgically dismantled by someone who clearly had access to information that could destroy not just one man, but an entire network of corruption.